Stellaris is one of the best 4X games out there. It's pretty hard to find something else that matches the scale and depth involved, and it's certainly one of my favourite entries in the genre. But that's not quite what I want to talk about today. Instead, I want to focus on something that I think Stellaris excels at, and that's the early game. Hi, I'm Calivan, and today we're going to talk about the masterpiece that is the opening stages of Stellaris, why it works so well, and how it brings a lot of character and detail to your civilization's first step towards the stars. One of the things that sets Stellaris apart from a lot of other games in the genre is the real-time nature of the engine. Although on a surface level this might seem to be just a matter of preference, I feel that with Stellaris it actually helps to make the events of the early game feel more relevant. In many of these games you have very few decisions to make at the start of a new game. There isn't much in the way of management required due to the fledgling nature of your civilization and limited number of starting units. This can result in a lot of very quick turns and a feeling that the beginning portion of the game is just something to quickly navigate through. With Stellaris this isn't the case. Although you may slow down or speed up time, you never get the feeling you're skipping anything, and as such this stage of the game really feels like it has meaning. When you combine the real-time nature of the engine with all the decision making, the early game feels pretty action-packed, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So, before we start to talk about the early game events, let's rewind back to the very start, the creation of your race. I chose these little fox looking dudes because, well, I don't know why, I just thought they are kinda cool. They look pretty regal in their high society robes and there's a certain amount of cunning going on behind those eyes. I didn't have to choose fox people. There's a bucket load of options, starting at humans and progressing through a variety of mammals, reptiles, cyborgs, robots and all sorts of horrific gargling entities with way too many limbs and faces that only a mother could love. During the generation of your species there are all sorts of naming and language options, so if you want to play as the Eternal Lord Sausage, ruler of the Sausage People and High Emperor of the Great Sausage and Star Empire, ruling from your throne on Chipolata Prime, then you're most welcome to, and I encourage you to do so. These customisations might sound just like a fun bit of world building, but they go a lot deeper than that. You see, you also get to pick what sort of government and outlook they have, all of which have a real and immediate impact on the game world. Is the Eternal Lord Sausage a benevolent dictator, or a power-mad descendant of a long dynasty dedicated to obedience and conquest? These are your choices. They are fun, rich in character and form the basis of the game you're about to play. I think my favourite part of the customisations is the origin story behind your particular civilization. In this playthrough, I play the descendants of a long collapsed star empire. My ancestors once rose to greatness and conquered the stars, but they were struck down and forced into decline in a new dark age by some ancient unknown force. Millennia have passed and the Fox people have rediscovered space travel and taken to the stars once again. Origin stories have the potential to have the greatest effect on the early game, as they decide the form and function of your starting system. Some of them present way more challenges than others. Doomsday is one of my favourites in this regard, as your people are living on a dying world and you have a limited amount of time to find habitable planets and relocate your people before your homeworld explodes in some sort of catastrophic event. I've played many other similar games and they've all got their own configurable starting points, but Stellaris feels like it has the perfect balance between the level of customization available and how those choices actually affect gameplay. After you've picked a civilization, you're welcome to the system view and the game starts in earnest. There's a whole galaxy out there and it's not going to explore itself, so you take your research ships and start investigating nearby systems. The research ships are quite cheap and quick to build, so you can have several of them jumping to connected systems, scanning them and making detailed surveys of each of the planets and other astrological points of interest. Until a system is surveyed, you know very little about it, and as the research ship gathers more info, details of planets and resources are revealed. This isn't an instant process, but rather a multitude of stages as each item is scanned and its secrets revealed. Rather than being frustrating, this drip feeding of information enriches the discovery, giving you a sense of exploration and making the process feel important and worthy of your time. When something of particular interest is discovered, such as a habitable planet, you are notified by the advisor and race to check out the details yourself. Often these are barren little patches of rock floating through space, but occasionally they are large, rich wells suitable for the biology of your species and perfect for colonisation. You get a great sense of opportunity whenever this happens, and you immediately find yourself taking more notice of the surrounding area and start making plans on how to integrate it into your empire. It's not all empty worlds out there, and sometimes your scouts will return with news of ancient artifacts or hints of a precursor civilization. You can task additional research teams to uncover these secrets, leading to discoveries that tell the stories of those who came before you. Some of these are simple one-off events, and others present as a series of discoveries that chain together to tell a more complex story. What makes them especially engaging is that you have choices to make, each with different outcomes. You might discover an ancient computer on a distant moon, still humming away, working on the same calculations it's been doing for millennia. Do you disassemble it and learn from its construction, gaining valuable research points, or do you leave it be and see what happens when it finally completes? Individually, most of these events only have a small impact on the galactic scale, but they are quite numerous, and collectively the decisions you make will start to change the course of the development of your empire. Alongside the remains of those that came before is the presence of those who still remain. They aren't fully fledged AI opponents, but instead micro-empires that inhabit their own small area and prohibit the expansion of yours. Sometimes these are simple, such as animal-like biological entities who will attack if approached. Other times they're band of raiders that demand tribute in order to hold back their fleets of bloodthirsty warriors. These things can be handled in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's as simple as conducting more research or initiating contact to discuss terms. Other times you must flex your war muscles and build a small fleet to drive them back. In the late game, these would be nothing more than specks of dust on your radar screen, but early on they can present a real threat and cannot be simply ignored. The best part about this is it gives you reasons to build and operate small fleets of ships and give your admirals something to do. Often with these sorts of games, military action isn't much of a priority until the mid-game. The resources of your fledgling empire already stretch quite thin, and the low-tech units you can build early on are normally quite pathetic. But in Stellaris they still serve a purpose. Your fleets might be weak, but they could be just strong enough to dispatch the pod of space whales in a nearby system, so you can settle the habitable world it contains and mine the rich asteroids that surround it. As you start to explore the systems around you and learn their secrets, you start to notice patterns in their positioning, and you begin to envisage how your empire might take shape. You notice pockets of connected systems that branch into others in a long chain. You identify choke points that provide entry into the heart of your dominion, and start to stake your claim along that path and reinforce the possible points of ingress. In the early and the mid-game, all of the travel is restricted to jump points between these systems based on connections rather than distance, so borders start to emerge and gradually the width and breadth of your territory becomes clearer and clearer. By the time you're a few hours into the game, you've watched your civilization grow from a solitary planet in a single system to a fledgling star empire, and at no point have you ever felt the need to skip a turn. You might only have a planet or three to manage and haven't really had any real interactions with the other AI empires, but that doesn't mean that you've been bored waiting. Your scouts have been exploring the far reaches of space, your constructors have been building outposts and mining platforms. You've sent small fleets to deal with isolated pockets of hostile encounters, and your science teams have been gaining valuable technological insights from the ashes of long extinguished ancient civilizations. The rich history of the galaxy has been revealing itself one page at a time, while your very existence continues to add new pages to the story. By the time you've hit the mid-game, most of these aspects are distant memories. You've established contact with the proper AI empires at this point, each of which brings a whole host of new interactions. If you become friends, you'll have research and trade deals to negotiate, embassies to build and migration treaties to sign. If they, or you, are driven by conquest, then you've got fleets to build, armies to raise and invasions to plan. You'll also have lots of colonies, outposts and trade routes to manage and govern, as well as a seat on the Galactic Council and all of the decision making that requires. Exploration and discovery will have taken a back seat to diplomacy, espionage and war. That which still remains from the early game, whether it be hostile mining drones or small bands of raiders or pirates, will be easily brushed aside by the size and power of your fleets. The archaeological digs have already been dug and other such curios have been fully researched and their secrets revealed. But that's okay, as they've all served their purpose by now. This is why I think the early game of Stellaris is so masterful. The implementation of the initial discovery period is rich in both consequence and story. It actively encourages you to explore and rewards you with resources, units, planetary benefits, scientific advancements and more importantly, presents you with plenty of interaction. Many of the events in the early game have the feel of entry-level quests you might be presented with in an RPG. designed to flesh out the story and provide you with some early benefits. What really helps is the sheer variety available. There are hundreds of possible single events and chains, and the dynamically generated nature of each galaxy means that every playthrough is never quite the same. I've played quite a lot of 4X games in my time, and in almost all of them I've always felt that the early game is something to rush through, while the real meat is to be had in the middle and later portions of the game where your civilization has grown to such a size there's a lot for you to manage. Stellaris is the exception. From the moment I send my first research ship into an adjoining system and start to survey it, I feel a sense of adventure and can't wait to explore what's out there, discover ancient secrets and use that knowledge to further my own civilization. Now, I doubt that Stellaris is the only game out there that handles this part of the experience so well, but it's certainly the one I've spent the most hours in, and I find myself coming back to it time and time again. Hi there! Do you share my feelings on Stellaris, or is there another 4X title that you think has a better early game experience? Let me know in a comment, as I'm always looking for new games to try. If you enjoyed this video, then click the like button, and if you want more of this sort of thing, then subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you back soon.